welcome to the FORCEPOINT event. My name is Harshal Doshi. I'm the National Sales Manager for FORCEPOINT India. And to start with, I'd like to heartily welcome all of you to this particular event, and thank you again for making time. Over the next 2 to 3 hours, what we're going to do is take you through a series of sessions that we have planned for you, starting with a very interesting session by Dr. Divya. She's a distinguished personality who's going to come and speak about the new cyber threats that we see in the market today, and kind of give an overview of what we are seeing in the industry as a trend, followed by a FORCEPOINT solution presentation in terms of what this organization is all about and how can it help enterprises like yours solve the latest cybersecurity threats that we have today. Followed by that, we have a specific product presentation for you, which is very, very suited to your market. And then we'll have a round of networking where we can speak to each other over dinner. So that's the kind of agenda that we have for the evening. And before I call our first speaker, Dr. Divya, on stage, I'd like to mention that you've got a flyer on your tables. This particular event is covered by social media. So if you can help, send out a tweet or write a comment on either Twitter or LinkedIn with the hashtag #SecurityGeek. We are running a contest right now that a LinkedIn post or Twitter post with the maximum number of retweets or likes is going to be awarded, from FORCEPOINT. So please make the most of it. We have a lot of product updates, cybersecurity updates as part of that particular handle. The Twitter handle is called SecurityGeek3, and you can write a comment or tweet on Twitter or on LinkedIn using the hashtag #SecurityGeek. So with that, I welcome you all again, and with that, I would like to call upon Dr. Divya on stage. Just a quick introduction to the esteemed guest that we have for the evening. A very long profile and a very reputed one. Dr. Divya is an information security professional in the area of mobile sensing and pervasive computing. She's also taught for a lot of universities. She's additionally holding charge as an additional director for the Department of IT in Chandigarh administration for the last 2 years, and she's been working very closely with the e-governance projects at city levels, and in collaboration with NASSCOM, DIT, so on and so forth. So with that, let us call upon Dr. Divya with a big round of applause.
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I think this introduction was not required. All I would like to say is that I am an educationist at Punjab Engineering College and heading the Cybersecurity Research Center. That brings me here, I think. So, the couple of minutes I would like to interact with you. The latest challenges and the security threats, and I would request if we can make this session to be highly interactive. I'll be more than happy to take your questions on problems, because I am sure they're going to have some solutions. So I was actually very pleased to note the title of their session that they have organized today, which is very rare for the security companies, human-centric security. So you see that machines are now completely replacing humans. So we always thought that all vulnerabilities exist in the machine. So it's the machines which require all monitoring and safeguarding. But we always forgot that the one who's behind the machine is a human, because the machines do not have any intelligence of their own, and hence the role of artificial intelligence which a machine derives exactly you make the machine to program, and hence the role of the human becomes very, very important. So I think I'll therefore also like to keep my talk a little less technical, but focus more on the issues and then which are more human-centric, and then we go back to how this becomes really very dangerous. So we all have been hearing about the news on the Kathua rape case as well in Kashmir, which happened in January. And there was news in the January, and after that you didn't hear our media. I'm sorry, but you didn't hear the media for February, March, until in April, when some colors protest, and suddenly we were almost turning on any channel, and all that you would hear would be about this particular unfortunate, very, very unfortunate episode. And from my personal perspective, in episode given the colors of religion, you know, and suddenly there were, as expected, there would be protest, there would be, and generally what would happen would be, as citizen, purely from the citizen perspective, the law enforcement agencies would be quiet for some time, and once we, the protesters, are back home, the investigations would take their turn the way they have to. Now, in this entire plethora of events which would have taken place, if you just go online, you know, and look at the headlines and follow them from January to April, you would not be able to find one single authentic source of information where you can calibrate your mind to find out the truth. Even if you are assured all investigations, you would not know whether the right culprit is behind the bars. You read different headings, media, be it print media, especially the social media, and you just turn on the TV channels, completely digressing news coming on each and every channel, different verdicts. So the issue is, as in today, the social media has proliferated so much, I don't think that I would even turn on my television, and the next generation, or maybe say generation younger to me by 5 years, completely relies upon mobile apps, and all news media is, the information that they get is from the mobile apps or the social media. We don't even look at newspapers, we don't even look at the television channels. So given that proliferation of social media and online media in our lives, do you have a single source to rely upon, as in what is the truth? So that's the issue of fake news, yellow journalism, which we have completely circumvented all around, and it's all humans doing even human propagandas. In London, the Prime Minister there have been protests. There were just 57 people who were protesting, but if you look at the Economic Times and the kind of language and the way the protest has been orchestrated and shown in the media. So you just have to go online and you would see that what we are hearing, what we are seeing around us, especially the online media, is completely orchestrated, and we are far away from the truth. Given this kind of a proliferation of the media, how do we really safeguard ourselves? It's not the machines which are doing this to us. It's the humans behind the machines who are doing this to us. And henceforth, I think I appreciate that they are at least thinking of solutions which are more human-centric, because the actual threat is not the machine, but the human behind the machine who's designing, who's actually developing these kind of threats for yet another human. So I'll take another example. Sometime in November, there was a very positive move in our country. So Justice Krishna Committee was formed long ago, and they came out with data protection law draft paper, which might be most likely the future data protection law of our country, because currently we do not have any data protection law. Which means, I hope all of us are pretty clear on what are the implications of not having a data protection law. while most of the countries now have, and there are other countries like Europe which have now even come with GPDR, and it's supposed to be implemented from 25th May? 25th May? 18th May. Okay, so that is far more stringent than what even US companies will be able to adhere to, while in our country we still do not have a data protection law. So this committee came up and this draft law was made open to the public for their comments. The last date for which was 31st March. Fortunately, our Cybersecurity Research Center took a lead and had all the most illustrious people around from the security agencies and the defense and all, sat together for 2 days and came up with the recommendations, which were again 200-page long, and wrote our recommendations to MHA as well as Ministry of IT and everywhere. But there were a lot of points, though it's a commendable job what has been done as a part of the draft paper. But still there were many gaps when we compare ourselves to the other country. I'm sure it's very clear, but I would still like to reiterate and sensitize the issue that the most popular mobile apps which are there on our phones, of course, happens to be Facebook amongst the youngsters, WhatsApp, the most popular one. Can you suggest any other? Instagram? LinkedIn, all social media. Any other? Twitter. Book My Show. Make My Trip. Paytm. Truecaller. So how many of us are using Truecallers? Thank you. How many of us are using WhatsApp and Facebook together? WhatsApp and Facebook together. Okay. So all you gotta do is go back home on WhatsApp, send a number of one of your friends who is currently not there on your FB, Facebook page. So you just have to send that number on the WhatsApp to anyone. Within 15 minutes, you would start getting the friend recommendation for the person to whom that number belongs to. Cambridge Analytica, we all know. I mean, there's so much to be spoken about, but nobody really knows that each and everything that you communicate over WhatsApp is also sold to the data brokers and the advertisers, and henceforth you get the recommendations. So please try that out. You have a question? No. Okay. So I'll tell you one more thing. So all of us are pretty well aware of that if you try to do a Google search, you are being tracked and your personal profiling is done. Your taste, your choices of people, the places, the food, the issues that you like to follow or search, you know that all profiling is taking place at the back end, and the psychometric analysis of every individual is done by Google search engine. Am I right? So this is something which is pretty known. 5 days ago, there was a paper which is not yet published, which surfaced on internet about what's latest that the Google is doing, and here it is. So that paper says that the Google has now developed a technology that it can, okay, I'll miss one sentence which I'll say later, but then if you are in a crowd, it is able to distinguish you as an individual and listen to the entire conversation. Which means if all of us were talking here, which we would after these talks, during your dinner or when we get over with a formal session, and all of us create a noise, Google would have the abilities to track one individual and get through filter out the entire background noise, whatsoever may be the levels, and track one single conversation. Now the question is, how is this technology so useful to them? To understand the behavior? Absolutely. But what is the relation with the audio? But where do they have an access to our audio? Mobile phones. Include laptops. Includes the time when you are actually browsing through a search engine, and the abilities of many of such like firms to be able to trigger on your microphones of your laptops and your smartphones and listen to your conversations. And that's where working on these kind of R&D makes them more worthwhile, because now the profiling is not just based upon what you type, it is also based upon whatever you speak at the background. So we cannot blame Google search engine for that. The one that has to be blamed for the breach of privacy is the human behind it and not the machine again. Another issue that I would like to bring in, I mean, just again as an example of why data protection is very, very important. I mean, if you go through the privacy policy, in fact, we have done the study for very most popular mobile apps that you have on your phone, which includes WhatsApp, the Ola, the Uber, the YouTube, and also popular apps which you use. So typically every app has an access to about 20 permissions from your phone, and they have legally obtained these permissions from you the moment you agree to their privacy agreement, which we all know. And if you try to deny that agreement, you don't have an access to that service. And that's been the means to proliferate into our lives. You don't have a choice, you have to. And if you look at those kind of permissions, at times you would have seen, if you change your phone, so WhatsApp sends you a code for authentication through SMS. You tap on that code. You don't have to type anything on the WhatsApp window. So I hope you understand I'm talking about these two different things, SMS and the WhatsApp Messenger. You get an SMS on your SMS, you tap on that code and it appears on your WhatsApp screen. How did that happen? The app got an access to your SMS, right? All the SMS that you have. And even some applications and services like Paytm also do this, that you tap on the code, the authentic two-factor authentication code, which is a 4-digit code, and you tap on the SMS and it goes to your screen, the mobile app. So these mobile apps have all the access to your messages. They can write text messages. They have that rights given to you, given by you legally. They can read your messages, including the OTPs. And with WhatsApp, you also have a service, speech to text. You're driving or something, so you speak something, it will convert it to the text. So what is it that it has an access to? Your microphone. It listens to you. That is when the translation from speech to text happens. So WhatsApp has an access to your microphone. And now legally, I'm sure they would be using it only for providing you this service and never listening to your microphone calls. In fact, this is what Mark Zuckerberg, there was also a question by the senators during his 2 hearings which happened in US, when this question was posed to him, that are you also listening to the audio calls? And this was a question asked to Facebook, because the Facebook also has an access to your microphone, leave alone your GPS location and everything. So that's privacy. So that's where, you know, the protection of the data is becoming a very, very serious threat. And you know, those typical anti-malwares which we have been using earlier, or firewalls that we have been using, are no longer the right solution. You just protecting your desktops is just not enough, because your entire life can be profiled just with one single device, and hence you need a lot of solutions for this mobility, which we have been granted with. Our entire profiling for entire life, our food, the people we talk. Let me give one more example. Truecaller. No doubt it is very useful. Now suppose I have a friend working in a top security agency, say NSA of India, so who doesn't like that his contacts or his identity ever be disclosed, who would not even share his number. Suppose I'm a close friend, or professionally close, I'm working with that individual. So I save his number as XYZ, which is his name, -NSA. And I have a Truecaller installed on my phone. The moment you install a Truecaller, what happens? The entire contact list from your phone goes to the database of Truecaller. So what has gone to the database is what I stored. The name and his organization, NSA, with no fault of that poor chap, because he's my friend. There goes the entire privacy for a toss. So henceforth, in today's world, the traditional solutions, the security solutions that we have been adopting, I think, are pretty much insufficient. And also to give you another example, in most of the data protection law, the term which has been used is PII, personally identifiable information. So even if you have data protection laws, they are with respect to PII, be it Aadhaar or be it any other personal data of yours. Now the issue is the analytics. The past technologies today are artificial intelligence and the analytics. I hope we all agree to that. So there are a lot of sensors, like there is one sensor called accelerometer in the phone, right? So whenever there is a force exerted on this phone, there is this data from the accelerometer which goes to the backend server, which can tell a lot about you. For example, we use Fitbits in the watches that also have an accelerometer sensor. You would have seen people wearing this as a wearable device and going for a jog. So this device, this sensor can identify and recognize the activities that you perform. Whether you're jogging, you're walking, and sometimes even eating. There are patterns. So while PII may say personally identifiable information, these data values in these three columns, X, Y, and Z, these are just the data values which are going from your phone to somewhere. Okay, protect this because PII defined this, right? But when they perform the analytics on this data, what they would get is not PII, it doesn't identify me, but sensitive inferences drawn. What I am doing, you profile my entire life about what I am doing, is a sensitive inference about me. And currently this term has not been included anywhere. So these are the kind of dangers. We have smart city, we are moving towards it. We have IoT devices, you would have refrigerators IoT based, you would have televisions, smart televisions which are going to be IoT based. When they trigger on a camera on a television while you are in the bedroom, you would not know about it. If Google is developing these kind of technologies where microphones can, of course, be triggered at the back end and they can listen and single out one single conversation of a particular human, same is happening with the images and any such kind of data. So the world is going, I think, in a very, very different direction, and therefore I think the kind of solutions also that we require have to therefore be very, very different. And in fact, I think I would end up with this. Is that case? Any other? But we have seen lately, I think in the last month, there were 10 websites, very sensitive websites indeed, includes Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Home Affairs, Law. So they were all compromised. Until now, we don't know what really happened, but it was the Drupal on which they were actually being hosted. So, the kind of loss of reputation. You see, this episode incident actually would have happened somewhere at 4:30, and it lasted for a couple of hours. And our minister somehow tweeted, and within minutes of her tweeting that the website has been defaced and compromised. So we had Dr. Gulshan Rai heading NCST, who made a counter statement that no, it's a technical glitch and it was not a compromise. Until today, it's called a technical glitch. So we really do not know what really happened, but then we know that what happened in those 4 hours was enough of an embarrassment for us internationally and a lot of loss of reputation which happened to us as a nation. So for every organization, the insider threats, the loss of reputation, the loss of data, the way the data is being handled, especially by the insiders, because you see securities, as they rightly mentioned, is not in our DNA, right? So the culture, the way we just leave the data and handle the data has become very, very critical. The other day we were discussing this in one of my professional group, and there was a very interesting message. So I would end up my talk by reading out that message. So if you really want to be safe and secure, so I'm sure you should counter me on this, please. I'll be happy. So if you really want to be safe with your data, quit Facebook, install ad blockers so that there are no advertisements, destroy your smartphone and all IoT devices, paint your face before going outside because anybody can click you and post your picture anywhere, even though you are not on Facebook. It could be done. Write opt-out letters to at least 4,000 data brokers, which also include going to a company for the insurance of your car and filling up the insurance form on a page, which is later on handed over to a data broker who gets the data entered and back and sells your data, including the restaurant where you give a feedback on a page, including your date of anniversary, date of birth, your address, your mobile number, and the date of birth of your wife, your spouse, and hand it over to the waiter with a tip, which is sold to the data broker. Again, the data is entered, and together at a back end, there's a complete profiling of yours taking place. So please write letter to all data brokers who are profiling you. Avoid humans, because that's how Facebook gets all the data. Move to a remote forest as soon as possible, because in this urban world you have almost a camera and all sort of IoT devices like smart televisions and all, capturing your conversation. And I don't know just now, right now, where on Twitter I might be flashing, even if I'm media shy. So I think that's the way to protect it, and I will be happy if you counter me. And when I got this message, I wrote back, can we please urge Elon Musk to make his MTI more and more cost effective so that we can have the soonest possible colonization on Mars where we can go, because I don't think so we are safe and secure anymore on this earth. So thank you very much, and I would once again like to thank organizers for bearing with me, but that's what education is start. Thank you once again.
Nobody's worried about your personal data?
No, I think they're waiting for the solutions from me. Thank you once again.
I think that was a very enlightening session. I'm sure you all must have picked up a lot of tidbits into where our world is currently moving, right? We all know that none of our personal information is personal anymore. Everybody knows everything about us as long as they have the right access. And as Dr. rightly mentioned, there's a lot of analytics which go behind it to profile you as individuals, your likes, your dislikes, your social circles, your political affiliation, and everything. And all that analytics is then kind of used or misused to either sell more products, to win elections or whatever it is, right? So that's like the scary part. That's like the bad part. But then we all know there's a phrase in Hindi that har sikke ke do pehlu hote hain, right? So we've seen the negative side of it. But every technology or every innovation, if used in the right manner, can also lead to a lot of benefit to society as a whole. While privacy is a huge concern for all of us, when we look at the larger picture, technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, behavioral analytics, have proved to be boons for large enterprises, governments, and even defense organizations. Because the way in which these technologies understand data, they churn data and bring out intelligence is of a different caliber altogether. And when we look at cyber security, I think that is where FORCEPOINT as an organization wants enterprises like yours to rethink the way in which we have been running cybersecurity till now. We understood a lot of problems that exist in relation to privacy, in relation to our data, so on and so forth. But there is another set of problems that our enterprises or countries or governments have in terms of procedural frauds, in terms of governance issues, in terms of data loss, critical data loss, and all of these, if extrapolated to a level which can actually have negative impact, or even a huge catastrophe in terms of our defense-related capability, I think we are talking about a very serious issue here, right? So, how can us as enterprises, individuals, or even agencies, relook at, to address all these, problems that exist in the world today? ForcePoint, if I can take a couple of minutes to introduce, ForcePoint. We have been, a thought leader in cybersecurity for the last couple of decades. Most of you know us as WebSense earlier. We are a world leader in a lot of cybersecurity technologies, namely web, email, data security, so on and so forth. And we've been recently rebranded as ForcePoint for the last couple of years. And we've taken up a mission to change the world. Okay, and for the next 30 minutes, I'm actually going to take you through how, and what is our thought process when we talk about actually changing the world. The reason why this particular cybersecurity issue becomes very important is because I'm sure you would have heard this particular phrase that data is the new oil, right? Anybody who has the right amount of data and the right technology to churn that particular data is the king today, right? And with this kind of power which data actually possesses, there comes a lot of problems in terms of maintaining that data security, in terms of ensuring that it doesn't fall in the wrong hands, and also at the same time ensuring that citizens at large, their privacy is not compromised. Now let's look at a different perspective altogether. Every business in this world wants to grow at an exponential pace. I'm sure as enterprises you would have already started your journey towards cloud, towards mobility, and trends like bring your own device, work from home, those kind of things, right? So there's this one vector where businesses want to expand and adopt trends like cloud and mobility, and on the other end there is this huge problem of data security, privacy, compliance, so on and so forth. Now there's a third aspect to it as well. The third aspect to that is the way in which we connect to our enterprises. Today, as a security professional, or even as a corporate professional, I have more than 2 to 3 devices through which I communicate with my peers, my colleagues, my friends, my relatives, so on and so forth. I have a corporate laptop, I have a tablet device, I have a mobile phone, so on and so forth. So if you look at a 3-dimensional picture that I just spoke about, there are a lot of trends in terms of cloud, mobility, so on and so forth. There is a huge issue about data privacy, compliance, so on and so forth. And then you have the medium with which you access enterprises. The problem so complex does not require a solution which is equally complex. Sometimes to rethink and to reimagine a certain problem actually forces us to go back to basics. And that is what ForcePoint actually did, and came with a conclusion that traditional cybersecurity approaches have been very, very technology centric. यार मैंने एक antivirus लगा दिया, एक firewall लगा दिया, एक IPS लगा दिया, I think my enterprise is fairly secure. Do you think in today's world, where you have these trends, this data security problem, and these devices, do you think this particular approach is enough? Can I have answers? Yes, no? Absolutely not. The need of the hour really is to rethink and reimagine cybersecurity. And when ForcePoint was actually thinking about this, we came across some very startling statistics, and based on that we came to a conclusion that a very important aspect of cybersecurity has been ignored for decades till now. Do you know that? Do you know what that element of cybersecurity is? Can anybody take a guess? Anybody? What do you think is the key element which was missing in the cybersecurity approaches till now? Can anybody take a guess? Humans. Absolutely right. You know, we've been investing in technology, according to IDC and Gartner, till now, more than $500 billion have been spent by enterprises across the globe to address cybersecurity issues. And I have a simple question for all of them, including you. We've spent $500 billion, fantastic. Have the cybersecurity issues come down? Yes or no? They've not come down. Have they gone up? They've gone up, right? So does that mean that all the investment that we've done is wrong? No, that's not, that's not all gone in vain. But somewhere, something is missing. We have been ignoring a very crucial element in cybersecurity, which is ourselves. Okay? Let me give you some examples. We've all heard about, cybersecurity threats like, say, ransomware, advanced persistent threats, DDoS attacks, so on and so forth. Okay? And as, doctor also rightly mentioned, machines are involved, but there is a human behind that machine who's executing all of that. And there is a human at the receiving end who's doing something wrong so that, an attack like that actually gets executed. So with that particular, introduction in mind, ForcePoint, what it actually did is that it kind of recalibrated its entire portfolio to look at human behavior as the key element to address cybersecurity, right? Let's look at how did we do it. So I'll not spend much time on this introduction because I've already spoken about it. We are ForcePoint, and we spoke about this. What is really the case for change today in cybersecurity? How do you secure a global network you don't fully own or manage, right? So you have cloud infrastructure, you have the open internet, you have a lot of types of people accessing your information, right? With that complexity, what are the key cybersecurity issues that you see today? In fact, it's written down here, but I would like to take questions, or maybe some views from the audience, because you're all cybersecurity custodians. If I can get top 4 to 5 cybersecurity issues that you're seeing in your own enterprises, it will be very interesting for the entire audience to know if somebody can volunteer and tell about what are the key cybersecurity issues that you see in your enterprise today. Would anybody like to volunteer? We'd really like to have somebody take that particular challenge and come over here and speak about that. Anybody? What are the key cybersecurity issues that you see in your enterprises today? Sir, would you like to take a shot on that? Can we have a mic given to the gentleman, please? Yes. So if you can introduce yourself. If the mic's not working.
Hello.
Yeah.
Myself Manoj Bhatia. I am from Vartman Textiles.
Okay. Yes, sir. So what are the key cybersecurity issues that you see in your enterprise today?
Some of the issues are some spam mails are coming.
Okay.
And some point of time the PC is compromised with a ransomware.
Okay. Fantastic.
And sometimes some data center security is also compromised.
So your server security, server-side security.
Server security.
Fantastic. Big round of applause for Sir for at least openly telling us this. Anybody else who would like to volunteer and tell us more about the cybersecurity issues that the lady over there.
Hi, I'm Shweta. I'm from Paul Merchants. We are
Paul Merchants.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're largely into money exchange, money
Okay.
transfer,
Okay.
foreign exchange,
Okay.
travel. So for me, the key issue is security of data, because I am storing a lot of KYC information of my customers, and security of that data is very important.
Fantastic.
And the security is not from the perspective of an external attack, it is also from the people who are working with me. Once they move out of the organization, I don't want my data to travel along with them.
Absolutely.
So that's my key concern.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think thank you so much, Shweta, for sharing that particular thought. And I think we all resonate that particular thought that data is extremely crucial. And I'd like everyone to focus on the last part that Shweta mentioned, that the threat is not always external. It's more than often it's actually the internal users who are the source of that particular threat. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that thought. Anybody else? I'd like to have two more. Right. Fantastic. Now I see the energy coming in. Fantastic. Awesome. Yes, the gentleman over here.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Vikram from Heartron.
Yeah, Vikram.
Actually, the main issue nowadays we are facing, that is each and every web page, even your page when you are invited for the registration, each and every web page is asking for the registration page.
Right.
Information, we all entered information on all the pages.
Okay.
And how we can trust the data will be safe?
Right. Fantastic. This is a very new perspective that whenever you register for an event, you give out a lot of personalized information, and how can I be sure that that particular information is secure? So I'll tell you the trick that I handle. I never give out my phone. I just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think that's a very valid kind of concern. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Abhinesh Goel. I'm running a subsidiary of an American company here in Mohali.
Okay.
Our company in US is into e-commerce, so we provide all kind of technical services from here, software development, call center, website maintenance and stuff.
So you say it's an e-commerce company in the US?
Yeah, yeah. So
he's not revealing the identity, but we all know what it is.
see, it is because of the profiling we are all here.
Absolutely. See, you have a smart one here. Okay, awesome. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So you are also misusing that. In a way. Okay, so so coming to cybersecurity, there are a lot of aspects. So because we store customers' data, so it's always a challenge to keep it secure. Whether it is stored in-house or whether it is stored on the cloud, because we use a hybrid model.
Yeah.
So we are always worried, because we have sensitive data like the payment information and stuff.
Absolutely.
So, and there are breaches both ways, like we save it or somebody else saves it for us.
Absolutely.
And we get issues like a customer has gone to our website and he complains that somebody else has approached me the moment he went to our website. Now, how did that happen?
Right.
So the onus comes to us.
And absolutely.
And we are clueless how
absolutely.
To
and we are regulated by compliance and so many guidelines, so on and so forth. And the penalties are huge. Especially I think what Dr. Divya said is that in India at least we still do not have a privacy law, but there are very, very stringent privacy laws outside.
Yeah, and we are following the
so you have to be regulated because you're an outsourced.
We are PSIDS.
Absolutely.
So we undergo regular audit
checks of PCI.
And now UK is coming up with their own laws.
GDPR and all those.
And Canada earlier they had put some stringent
absolutely.
So things are evolving, but it is difficult to adhere to all these laws. But new threats are coming, and like you mentioned, yes, internally also there are a lot of threats. So both ways, the external environment that poses a threat, and your internal environment, because the developers they have access to all the data. So they can steal the data and take it outside the organization. How do you avoid that?
Absolutely.
With all the pen drives and all the devices. So those threats are increasing day by day.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing this information. I think we got a very widespread spread of issues that we heard about, right from somebody sending a spam email to data security issues to giving out personalized information on the internet to adhering to global privacy laws, right? So these are all real issues. And do you know why did I ask this particular question? The reason for that is I really wanted to bring out a common aspect in all of these 4 problems that we just heard from our attendees over here, okay? And the common problem is there is always someone doing something wrong, and that's the reason why we face all these issues. I don't know whether you all watched this movie called iRobot. It's a Hollywood movie where they say that probably in some decades everything in this world will be run by machines, okay? And the moment we have everything run by machines, okay, you solve a lot of behavioral problems, okay? It has other problems in terms of a civil war getting broken out because people will land up with no jobs, and the exponential population explosion, so on and so forth. But the reality is it's not going to happen. Humans are going to remain, and they are going to remain relevant, right? So what does it actually lead us to? We have all the right technology. So the gentleman, when he spoke about here that he gets a lot of spam mail, he's already using an email security solution which looks at email spam. The lady which mentioned that she has a data security concern, I'm sure she has employed some technologies to help with data security, right? So we all have invested in technologies today, okay, which look at our cybersecurity problems to a certain extent, okay? But where we are actually missing out on is, are my insiders really behaving the way I really want them to behave, okay? And that exactly is the problem that we are facing with cybersecurity today. So let's step a little higher and also understand what our global customers have spoken about in terms of cybersecurity. What they've told us is that my data is now stored everywhere, including systems beyond my control and accessed from everywhere. Exactly what Shweta mentioned to us, okay? And also you, sir. I have too many point solutions with a disjointed security policy. I'm sure all of you at least must be using 3 to 4 minimum cybersecurity solutions which don't talk to each other, right? I'm drowning in alerts and cannot determine a critical signal. All of them are giving me so many signals, but I don't understand what is right and what is wrong, right? And by the time I figure out what's going on, it's too late for me to, do anything, right? So the time taken for me to address an issue is so long that I can't really help the problem at all, right? So these are some of the critical challenges that cybersecurity companies are also facing today. So let's look at why this is happening and what is the reason why we are facing these problems today. Till now, the cybersecurity approach has been very, very threat-centric, okay? Now when I say threat, what comes to my mind? I am standing here, somebody is going to come and hit me, okay? So that's the perception of threat that we have when we talk about cybersecurity, which means that I am working properly in my organization, but somebody from outside will come and attack me. That's the core mindset of how cybersecurity has been run till now. But I'm glad when I spoke to you people who acknowledge that the threat is actually internal. And when we have this kind of a thought process with a very threat-centric approach, there is a bell curve that we see that there are certain good things which we've easily classified. That yes, there are certain, say for example, IP addresses, my good machines, my specific kind of data, I've already classified it as good. And there is something which we've already classified as bad. For example, when you talk about web, you talk about gambling websites, or pornographic websites, which are bad. There are some blacklisted IP addresses in countries, which is bad. So we've done this exercise, and most cybersecurity solutions give that intelligence to you, that what is good and what is bad. But that's where the problem actually starts, because there's a big chunk of information, infrastructure, identities, entities which lack context, right? Which are hard to classify. How can I say that an employee today who is doing the best of work, because he did not get a very good appraisal, will not change the way he behaves tomorrow? Secondly, how can I be very sure that a machine which is patched today, okay, will remain patched for the next 6 months and not behave differently, right? So when we have such dynamism in our environment where we lack a lot of context, that is where all these problems start coming up, that I don't know what is happening in my environment. And that's the reason why there is a need to shift a particular approach of cybersecurity. And the approach has to be very, very behavior centric. Okay? The idea is not to profile somebody pre-handedly to decide whether it's good or bad. Based on how it is behaving in real time, you take actions. Okay? And that is where ForcePoint has been investing a lot of its energies to understand behavior. What does it really do? What does the behavior-centric security actually do? It detects individuals interacting with systems that pose the greatest risk in your environment. It rapidly and anonymously understands potentially risky behavior based on indicators of risk, and decide what is good and bad based on how the user is interacting with data, and continuously revisit your decisions as you and our machines learn. Now I'd like to take a pause, okay, and speak about a very recent incident which happened. I'm sure all of you know. When I say the name Modi, which first name comes to your mind? Narendra Modi, right? But there's another Modi who's become very famous in the last 3 or 4 months. Yeah? Yeah, few of them. But as a Gujarati, I don't take pride in that. But there are a couple of other Modis who have become very famous. One is Neerav Modi, and one is Lalit Modi. But when you talk about the entire PNB case which happened, okay, why do you think that happened? Corruption. वो सर दारू पे डिस्कस करेंगे. But absolutely, there is somebody inside who knows the system inside out. And when you have somebody inside who knows the system inside out, he can do wonders and he can do blunders. Okay, what happened in the Neerav Modi case was a blunder. Okay, he managed to print so many LOUs without letting the core banking system know, without even letting his management know, and the bank was very happily giving him thousands of crores as loans. Why do you think this happened? This happened because an internal guy knew too much. He knew how a system can be breached. Mind you, this is not a cybersecurity fraud. This is not a cybersecurity fraud. This is a financial fraud. This is an operational fraud. Okay? This is just to tell you that how behavior can actually lead to so many discrepancies. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. That if you have somebody who knows so much and he's an insider, there is definitely a need to profile that person or give a personality type to that person in terms of how he or she is behaving with your systems. Okay? Now Dr. Divya actually scared us a lot that profiling is bad, profiling is detrimental to the society, it actually is a breach to our privacy, so on and so forth. So that's the other side of the coin. What I'm talking about is actually the other the other side, which is the brighter side, where what we are saying is that using analytics, using behavioral patterns, using statistical analysis, we can not only prevent frauds, we can actually predict something which is going to go wrong in the future, right? So I'm not going to go into details of how ForcePoint could have helped PNB. Of course we could have, but the point which I want to actually make here is that that is where the world is now moving towards. We are no longer a static-driven cybersecurity world. We have to change as people change, right? And that's what we call as risk adaptive security, right? So as your behavior changes, the way cybersecurity looks at you also changes. If I'm a less risky user, I'll allow you to do certain things. But if you're a high risk user, I'll kind of enforce certain stringent controls on you, right? So that's where we are getting into, and we actually call it the human-centric approach.